perpetrator of misinformation during the pandemic has been the United States government. Now we have the definitive Cochrane review. What do you do with that review? Cochrane is the most authoritative evidence body in all of medicine and has been for decades. Do you just ignore it, not talk about it? Which is unforgivable, and that is the weaponization of medical research itself.
Right, got to remember to turn the microphone on. Right, that's still on. The camera's on. Everything seems to be done. My hair's not looking too bad today. At least most of it's pointing in the same direction. I know there are those that are envious of it because I actually have some. Don't be too envious of it. It can be a bit of a pain in the bum. How has your weekend gone? It's been bloody cold in Vegas. Can I tell you? Still bloody cold in Vegas. Still wearing 3 layers of clothes. Rather unfriendly, but beautiful, beautiful days, crisp nights, except for the chemtrail spraying. There's been a bit of that going on yesterday, particularly down the Gold Coast, and I believe pretty much a trail from Western Queensland all the way down through New South Wales. So they were busy yesterday. Tasmania, I know through my friend Malibu down in Tasmania, she's taking photos basically every day. Of the bastards, as she's referring to them, and so she should. There's certainly a huge amount of spraying going on there, and I think I showed you in one of the last shows just some of the evil pictures. Just some of the evil stuff that they are spraying. Barium and aluminium being one or two, Ba and Al on the periodic table, Bal. So, lots of interesting bits and pieces there. Now, speaking of interesting bits and pieces, the log of claims is something that I've been pushing here with the Voice of Freedom in conjunction with John Wilson, who authored the document some months ago. Now, he authored the document out of a desire for a direction for all of us to head. Because we seem to be lacking one after Canberra, and I think that's a very fair assessment of the situation at the time. So John went to work on that document. As you well know, if you've been to the website, you will have seen the first draft of the version of the log of claims. And if you go to our website right now, vofhq.com, thank you to Vince, who at very late notice has been able to get it up on the website for me. So if you go to vofhq.com, and go to the log of claims tab, click on that, you'll be able to download this updated version, and there will be another updated version of this. This one might have a couple of spellos in it, but we'll get to that. At any rate, the author of the document joins me this evening. Good evening, my good friend John Wilson, and I'm pleased to see that you're paying homage in the background to the cookers.
Yes, of course. I mean, kookaburras deserve to be on our coat of arms after we totally flogged these energy vampires off our nation. Let's go, Cooker. Thank you for the invite, Carl.
No. Well, we couldn't really. I didn't feel we could really discuss this, mate, unless we had you involved. And I think it's important because people have given both you and I a great deal of feedback on the original log of claims. Our next guest, unfortunately, has just dropped out for a minute, so I'm going to hope that she reconnects. The feedback has been received and contemplated upon and been discussed. Would you like to go into that a little more?
Yeah. We've received hundreds of emails, and as a consequence of that, some fantastic feedback was received. It's been collated and sort of kept in sort of certain categories. Like some of the comments were, we shouldn't use the word government. We should change it to this word. And someone else would have, other feedback to say, you haven't included this or something of that nature, right? Or like someone had aged care in a particular area in Australia. Their concern was, they had an elderly mother or something in there. So, but the overwhelming majority was simply this. Yes, we support it. We should. take this log of claims and do something with it. That was the feedback by far.
So, as you say, a huge amount of support for it. I received similar and felt, overwhelmingly the same way. The sentiment coming through was that, yes, this is a direction we can go in. This is something I do support, and the finer details can be worked out further down the track. And well, like you say, hundreds, I think more like thousands. Vince will probably be able to tell us exactly how many we received. And all of that feedback has been taken into consideration. Now, you were then contacted out of the blue, I'm guessing, or did you manage to pick up these ladies yourself? Because it's unlike you to attract 6 fine ladies, or 4 to 6 fine young ladies around you. How did you manage that?
No, the log of claims was submitted, Carl, for public scrutiny, right? And it was emailed, it was shared, it was posted, it was, the usual thing. And as a consequence of that distribution, I've been contacted by a large number of people, right? Now, in amongst that large number of people, I've been contacted by one of the guests here tonight, Bethany, and Bethany was in working on current projects, right, with some Aboriginal lasses, and she wanted to talk the matter over, and that's how it sort of kicked up. It was quite spontaneous, very organic, and very quickly both of us sort of came to the mutual conclusion that there was that this the log of claims was a way forward. It was a great tool and a way forward. So we agreed on that, and then
moved on from there. All right. Well, Aunty Glenda was joining us, but she seems to have dropped out for whatever reason. But one of the other ladies that was joining us tonight has managed to stay connected, thankfully. So, Bethany, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. And can I thank you for your efforts that you've put in on the revamped log of claims?
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we?
Excited to have you here.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
So, can you tell me, Bethany, how did you come across the log of claims to begin with?
That's a brilliant question you have. A couple of weeks ago, Sunday to be exact, 2 weeks ago, I had someone message me from overseas at about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and said, did I know John Wilson? And my usual stance is to go do my own research before I come back to anyone. So I hopped on, did a search, found a YouTube of John talking about the log of claims and talking about how lots of communities in Australia who were awake were doing rallies or having meetings, but there was no common vision that everyone had. And I was like, oh, finally relief. Someone gets it. Someone gets where I've been focusing on, saying, how do we get everyone on the same page? It's a journey that the community all deserves to be on together. And the educational piece is to get every Australian across what's actually going on and the full picture, not just half the picture, just not what the focus is, but the full picture of what's happened in this country. So that's
Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the first points that you mentioned is bringing us all together. Now, this has been something that the Voice of Freedom has been on from day one, and I've struggled at times to find a way to do it. And in fact, I'm not sure if she'll remember it. I'm sure she probably meets a million people. But the first time that I met Aunty Glenda, I went to Sydney specifically to meet her. We had a lovely cup of coffee. I think it was on Cronulla Beach at the surf club. And I'd like to bring her back in now because she fell out of the chat earlier. Hello, Aunty Glenda. How are you? Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm good. I'm back on. So, yes, all excited. I was ready to go. Then it just threw me out. So I'm back on now.
We have that. We have those problems sometimes. Sometimes it's Telstra, sometimes it's not. Other nefarious means.
It could be from my end too. So it's very slow, my internet.
So can I just say thank you for that day that we met. It was a great education to me because I hope you got the feeling from that meeting, and certainly I was trying to convey, that it is extremely important to me that we can bring together both sides of our nation. And you feel exactly the same way. You were looking for people who felt the same way. You gave me a lot of education, give me a lot of education, because I'm one of the biggest problems that I think many white Australians have is that we have no cultural reference. We were given no cultural teachings growing up outside of what came out of the history books, which we're starting to learn may not be as reliable as we were first thought. So you've been heavily involved in this revamp of the log of claims. Can you tell me what got you involved with this? When you saw it, what did you feel about John's first draft, if you like?
Oh, look, when I saw his first draft, I was absolutely really excited about this. And I want to thank you, John, for sharing that with myself and Tamara. So it was a real eye-opener, you know, like I've been on this journey now it's going on to nearly almost 4 years, isn't it? And we've all been working really hard behind the scenes, doing what we can do best to bring our country together. And, you know, I've talked to hundreds of different people along the way. And obviously, you know, my main focus is to be neutral and to be a good listener on both sides. Obviously, you know, it's going to be really hard when, you know, we try to bring people together. And I've got to look from both lenses, but, you know, I've got to look from my cultural lenses too, because obviously I'll do an introduction. My name's Glenda Merritt. My name's Nallenja, which means Glenda. I did 25 years in the Australian Public Service, and I did the last 15 years in construction. So I guess the public service side of things, I worked around a lot of, you know, policies and procedures and all that corporate stuff. And then in construction, it was corporate construction. So I had a wealth of experience in working with sort of, you know, reconciliation action plans and, you know, all these target groups. I now know that they don't work. They're just not workable. They don't allow us to have, you know, self-determination. You know, it's kind of like a top-down approach.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when I read John's log of claims, to me that was from the bottom up, and this is us coming from the bottom. You know, putting what we need to put in place to stop all these corporate government. And I'm really excited to see what the next stage is with that. So, and I look at it as the only way out of this is that, you know, more tribal people, you know, there's different groups now, you know, creating PMAs, starting their own tribal groups, you know, getting themselves set up. And you've got other groups doing the same thing, PMAs, you know, the Australian Project and My Place. We're all doing similar things. But I think this document just hit the nail on the head, how to bring us together. And that's how I sort of look at that.
Hey, Glenda.
Yep.
Hey, Glenda.
Yeah, John?
I'm sorry to interject, but look, let me explain it this way. As an old left-wing trade unionist from Canberra, okay, in construction, right, and you know, I built the Parliament House as an example when they were building that. So, look, this is how we used to do it, right? You'd call a meeting of union members, right? Now, those union members were everybody. It wasn't just black fellas and white fellas. It was Lebanese, it was Greeks, it was everyone. You called a union meeting. They all came together. And then you had two parts of the union meeting. It's generally those things you wanted to get fixed, right? Safety or, you know, amenities or something. And then money. Right, your log of claims, right? That's what you did. Now, you discussed it at that union meeting, you drafted it up, and then you passed a resolution. You said, right, this is what we want. You voted on it, right? And you said, if we don't get it, we're going to go on strike. And you sent that up to the boss, right? You sent it up to the boss. That's how we used to do it, right? And that's what this log of claims is. It's simply a meeting of Australians, online, in person, right? All over the shop. All of us. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, brindle, doesn't matter if you're Catholic or anybody, right? It's simply agreeing on what we want. What we want. That's all it is, right? It's a log of claims, right, Australia? Now, there's a spiritual aspect to it that I can talk about, because there are satanic forces out there trying to, harvest all of this country's despair, misery, debauchery, defeatism. That's what they're trying to get us, and that's what they're trying to harvest, these satanic forces, whereas this log of claims wants to harvest the hopes, the dreams, and the aspirations of Australians. That's what needs to go into this log of claims, our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, what sort of a country we want, okay? And it's as simple as that. You don't have to, there's no party to join, there's no group to join, there's none of it. It's just all agreeing right on what we want out of this war, okay? And it's a pleasure to work with Glenda and others out there of all different backgrounds. It's a real pleasure, Carl. Thank you,
mate. I'm glad that you've given them so much great support, because my Lord, look what's come out of it. Bethany, I'll bring you back in here, and at this point, I can actually bring the document up if you'd like. Can we just go through? The changes, I think, in many cases are quite obvious if you've seen the previous document. But what was your goal in giving this a bit of a zhuzh up, so to speak?
So my main goal when we started looking at this document, when I first looked through John's, of course, I was in awe of what he'd put together and his effort of speaking to the numerous people or listening to what had been said through all the rallies and different meetings people were having. What I wanted to add to it was to bring it in so it was for every person. So the focus when I saw it was for the people that were awake, where my aim is that this is for every Australian, young, old, in between, any race, that everyone pick it up and say, how does this impact me? Because this is, as much as it's a war, we're in it together, it's an individual journey as well. So if you bring it back to the individual and it means something to the individual, then they look at it and see, how can this meet, or how is the current system or the current way we're living missing my needs, and what actually are my needs, and are my needs being met? So the whole focus was to bring it back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to show everyone that you are entitled to have needs, and these are your basic needs. And if any of these are missing, then there's something going wrong with the way that our society is operating. If your needs aren't being met, if your child's needs aren't being met, if your mother's and father's needs not met, and if your friends' needs are not met. So it brings it back to a level where everyone can relate to.
So do you just want to take us through Maslow's hierarchical needs there?
Yes. So the basis of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that you actually focus on all areas of your life. And the first area that you need to focus on, obviously, is your psychological, because you can't operate from anywhere if you are not in a state where you have your basic needs met. So in psychological, that includes air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Now, I know before I even go into the next level, there's a lot of people that are going to say, well, hang on, we know the water's been poisoned. We know the food's been poisoned. We have people that don't have homes. A lot of us are having sleepless nights. The clothing, some people can't afford to buy new clothes or even secondhand clothes at the moment. The reproduction's been messed with for various reasons, and the air quality is not good. So we can't even get past step one if you look at it from that perspective. So then you have safety needs, loving and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And anyone can go onto a website and just do a quick search on Maslow's, and there'll be different sites you can look at and see what that means to you, because everyone has a priority for themselves of what their first needs are, and what their needs of their family and what their needs of their friends are. So that was the initial stage into looking at the document through that perspective. The other thing that I noticed, because of the way that John had gone about it, in terms of identifying what people were talking about. What my focus is, what were people not talking about? What had slipped through the cracks? And I, a couple of years ago, had looked at the Prime Minister's cabinet. And when I looked at it and looked at all the different departments, I was like, hang on, why is there a men's section for this, but there's not an equal section for women's on this? Or why is there this category for children, but there's not one for elders? Why is there this? And then why is this department head got this, but not this department? And I suddenly went, well, hang on, this doesn't make skill set in both, or have they got in one, or have they got in either? What's the deceit that's going on that it's not easily, simply legible for people to be able to read it and work out what's actually going on? So that's when I started looking at it in terms of the detail that you can see at the bottom of page 2. We came up with me working with some tribal elders, including Glenda, of what those main departments could be that we could then look at and say, well, what's actually going wrong in each of those departments? What isn't working? What are we really clear of? What do we know from our lifetime of experience, and especially the last 3 to 4 years of increased knowledge intake? What in those specific areas are we looking at that isn't meeting the Maslow's hierarchical needs for us as individuals? And what do we want stopped because it's not meeting those? And then aligned to that, based on what we're discussing about John, is what is the vision? What do we want to start? Well, if we don't go through all the departments and identify what we don't want, how do we then identify what we do want? So it's always good to, most people's brains are wired due to the current system is focus on the problems. So it's actually helpful in one way, but if you can put your problems down and then move to the other side of the ledger and say, what do we want? Okay, that's what we want. Now, what's the vision and how do we get there? So that's what I help bring to the table, that extra depth in that. And then to be clear, we started with that and then went, hang on, we need to be more succinct on this, and added more detail in an appendix, which is now 10 pages long, covering a lot more detail. And in some cases, to the point, adding an explanation, because when we explain what we want to stop, people wouldn't even know that exists, let alone what we want to stop out of it. So we gave a bit of an explanation in that as well, in some cases.
Would you like me to show that now, or do you want to talk through parts of the, well, I was going to call it the preamble, but I mean, I think we've been through why is it being organised. We know the reasons why some of us are awake, some of us aren't, and we certainly know the catalyst moment for that. This Declaration of Independence. So this is something that I've had a bit of feedback on. None of it has been negative in any way, and except for the fact that we're calling it a Declaration of Independence. Now, I'm sorry, there are things that you just have to be named correctly, and this has nothing to do with America's Declaration of Independence. We're not ripping off that document. So this is more, as outlined here, we are declaring our independence from the cabal big business. That's what it looks like to me. Is that right, Bethany?
That is correct. We're declaring our true to be free people on the land of which we were born, or we came here from whatever modem we arrived on this land, and to be free and to live our lives freely, respectfully amongst each other.
Now, Glenda, just on that point, this document obviously designed to bring the tribal nation together with the rest of us here. The white, black, brindle, it doesn't matter. This document doesn't see color as a thing. So how are we going to be able to share this with the tribes? Because there are 350 plus of them around the country, and is this document useful in pushing for a no vote in this voice thing that's coming up later on this year? Is this something that we should be educating our tribal people on to maybe make sure they don't vote yes in the coming up referendum?
answers to, because I've been talking about, you know, a new financial system coming in, the new monetary reform, which is NASARA, and they kept calling me a conspiracy theorist. So, you know, if we're able to get all this information, you know, what is the new mechanism for the Treasury Reserve account? And, you know, I'm talking about, will all our debts be forgiven? You know, is there a global wage? And we're talking about our birth, you know, certificate entitlements, lump sum payments. Then we're seeing these other things coming through on the news, you know, BRICS. We don't understand all this because it's kind of layers upon layers of this financial system that's coming in all directions. So it doesn't make sense to us yet. It doesn't even make sense to me. So, you know, that's the big question. It's kind of like, well, how's it going to work financially? Because I'm saying the government's going down, everything's going down. You know, we're going to go into a recession. And the number one question is, what's going to replace that? So how are we going to sell it, you know, to everybody if we don't know those answers ourselves?
It's very difficult to try and push the NASARA.
To that?
It's very difficult to push the NASARA-JASARA argument because it does sound simply incredible to people that somewhere along the line you might wake up with, you know, a great deal of money in your bank account to a point where for you, you don't have to worry for the rest of your life. Neither will your kids, anybody in your family. Financially, everything will be looked after. However, if it should happen, it would be nice to think that some financial training might be required. I'm sure there's still going to be shysters out there who are going to be looking to try and get a hold of it. But the nice thing about a quantum system is that it is highly unlikely the scammers of the world will be able to get a hold of it. So I'm happy about that. And if money is no longer a problem from the poorest tribe members to the most wealthy corporate, the corporate blacks that we have working in Canberra and other places, this on screen now to me seems like a very healthy beginning list of demands. To focus on health, housing, environment, agriculture, industry, infrastructure, treasury and finance, not in any particular order, by the way, political security, foreign affairs, foreign trade, rule of law, defense, culture. I particularly like that one because you and I have discussed this at length, Glenda, that we get particularly through my age group, no cultural training whatsoever. Spirituality, education, employment, work-based, sport. This is just the beginning. But these are what we're calling a list of demands. And I think everybody in Australia can get behind those if you are fair-thinking, right-minded people. But if you feel that there is something there that's been missed or should be added, please let us know. It delves into sovereignty. It explains sovereignty. There is a difference between national sovereignty and personal sovereignty. Maybe, Bethany, you want to take up the cudgel here and explain why this has been included in the document.
So the whole reason for including all the detail in the document is exactly that. It's an educational piece. And I'll just go back to the point you just made around the voice before. What people don't realise is the tribal people on this land are actually outside any law, any legal law as it's been made up through the corporations. Based on the Pacific Islanders Protection Act of 1875, which I won't go into detail. It's in the appendix that if people want to do a search up, they can. And it provably makes it clear that the saving the rights of the tribes, as point number 7 in there, that they are outside any law. So the whole idea of the voice is to actually get the people of Australia who are unaware that they are currently outside of any law, to get them think that they want to include the tribal people as if that's a good thing to do without knowing the details behind it, and to try and force them back into the system. So currently, if any tribal person anywhere on this continent stands by the tribal name and the tribal land, then the jurisdiction is on the land, which is higher than the maritime law that's been inappropriately used on this land to include us, the people with a white name who calls themselves a citizen. So instead of calling themselves a citizen and they call themselves by the tribal name and the tribal land, then they automatically outside of any of the legal law by the police or any enforcement officers on this land. They have a higher jurisdiction. It's higher law.
Yep. We have been challenging that system in the courts, you know, under tribal law, under the creator law. It's still not really successful because, you know, they have the advantage over us still with numbers, you know what I mean? Like it's, for instance, if, you know, if is an example, and under the creator law, tribal law, we're not under the, you know, corporation or the constitution and that, and we've got our people who've done all their, you know, their due diligence, and they know their rights, and they're driving around under their rights, but they still can be locked up. They can still be under the corporation. Even when we're showing them all the documents, and you've got the Pope's apology, we've got the allodial title deeds, and we've got all the documents they need to see that, you know, you can't touch us. But they still do. They don't care. They don't care if we've got all the evidence.
No, it's probably because you're still fighting in their court, in their realm, and they don't care.
Yeah.
You're quite right. It isn't until we have the people educated to a point where we have the numbers on our side where that can change. In fact, Bethany and I were having a conversation a few days ago about just this point. Bethany is a very accomplished common law aficionado, let me say, and our conversation revolved around a mutual friend, and the fact that the interactions that I was having with Fitz came to an end when, for varying different reasons, it became obvious that while education for the Magna Carta was very good, mostly useless until we get an enforcement arm. And there is no way that, you know, a small group, be it even tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, are going to get an enforcement arm. We need to sway the country, and the only way that we can do that is by educating them. So, Bethany, what does this document do to go to educating people about their, you know, freedom?
Excellent point. And my thing's been from the very beginning of this. Let's start from March 2020, and where were the people there sitting there watching the news instead of doing their own research? So I'm a big one for, if someone's got a question, point them in the direction and say, there you go. If you've got an interest, research it. So we're coming to an age where it isn't about holding somebody's hand. It's about, if you want to know something, go find it. It's we've all got a duty of care as adults to step into our adulthood. And if we have an interest or we have a concern, that we research it and find to the bottom of the issue ourselves, and stop watching the mainstream news of what they want to feed you, and go look or speak to people who may know, or keep searching until you get the answers that you're after. So the way with sorry, go on. Do you want to say something?
We're always going to have a certain level of cognitive dissonance. There's going to be a level in the community. I think what that level is at the moment is unclear. But I think there's always going to be a level in the community who are never going to believe any of this, regardless what red pills and truths are shoved down their throat. They are going, and even they'll just deny it and walk away and die.
Yes, and I think that's possible on one level. However, I think personally with this document, that's highly unlikely on every level. The fact that we've gone to the detail that we have on every topic, and I'm going to just point directly to the appendix because, one, it's nice and colourful, So for the people that are more visual, it's much easier to read than what looks like another standard bloody law document that everyone's like, I'm over looking at black and white pages of words. So the whole concept of the appendix is to actually help at the detail level and say, what is my interest? Okay, my interest is agriculture. Well, what have they written up for agriculture? Who have they spoke to? What is there? What are they saying we should stop? What are they saying we should start? What do I know about this point? Is it something that I agree with? Is it something that I know anything about? Do I have an interest? If I do, I'll research it. If I don't, I'll move on to the next topic. So there's people that might just go straight by agriculture and not care where their food comes from. Well, they don't have to look at it. But somebody might go, well, actually...
So I just see in the first point there, agriculture, stop livestock international trade. Now,
yes.
I'm not part of the argument, not trying to introduce the argument, but international livestock trade is a huge earn for Australian exports. There are farmers who need that business to trade, to keep going, and there are people who still need to be fed. So regardless of how much money we've got, I know farmers, they don't care how much money they got. They do it because they love farming. And if it happens to be beef, cattle, sheep, or pork, or whatever it is, they're likely to want to keep doing it. So, as I suspect will be a lot of things on this list, there will be elements in the community that are opposed to that. So how do we work through? I mean, that's just the same as it is now. I think
that's great. I think that's great, Carl, because instead of this being a topic that's not discussed, it comes to the surface and it's actually discussed. So I think that's excellent point. And what I've been thinking over the last couple of days specifically around this topic is the people that really have the passion will help find a solution. So my specialty is not agriculture. I love my food and I love it fresh from the farm. And I really appreciate the farmers doing all the work over the years. However, my first question to you is, why don't we have fruit trees on the sidewalk? Why don't we have veggie patches out the front of everyone's place that you walk by and you can pick up a cucumber or pick up an apple? Why are we having to rely on farmers when we all have amazingly enriched soil right in our yards and we've got English gardens?
Oh, yep. And I think there is an element of that, but there are people like me who have black thumbs and fingers and who have very little interest in growing anything.
You rely on your neighbour.
Yeah.
And this is where we go back to community living, right? The whole idea in a community is we don't need 50,000 experts in farming. We need a person who's great at farming. We need a person who's organised to get the delivery to people's places. We need the person who's good at the healing. So we go back to the community, actually looking after the community, which unfortunately the way this system's been set up is rely on the government, rely it coming from overseas, rely it coming from somewhere where you'd never even met the person. It's so far removed that we've forgot. I mean, you go into Coles and they've got press the button to hear what a chook sounds like. It's like, come on, why don't somebody in the neighborhood have a chook that the kids go and check out the chooks and pick up the eggs, So all of that could be addressed.
The big news out of Woolworths today is that I think in Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney, you will now be able to buy onions, brown onions, that don't make you cry when you cut them. So genetically modified, they've happily said in the news today, they've removed the enzyme that makes you cry. So Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney folks, be careful of your brown onions. That's all I'll say. Stay away from the GMO foods. Not healthy at all. John, how are you feeling about this breakdown? I know you and I were discussing about how much extra detail needed to go into the log of claims. What are your thoughts? This is a huge amount of work that Brittany's put in here.
Look, let me explain it this way. The original document, right? The original was a collation of all of those things that were brought to my attention over the last several years. Okay, so I did my best to capture them. I did my best to distill them into a claim of some description and then to put them and assemble them. Okay, now the architecture of the original document has been changed, right? Okay, not the intent, not the not the direction, the architecture. Now, the architecture of the document as it now stands, right, I think is much better. I just think it's much better, okay, because it's in two parts, right? You've got a log of claims, right? That's in your first part, and then at the back end of it, it's the how-to, it's the blueprint, right? Right. We're going to go through every corner of government, every corner of all of their instrumentalities and those things which are doing us harm. We're going to switch them off and get rid of it. And those things, those initiatives that we need, right? We're going to switch them on. Right, okay, and we're going to put in place this to replace it, or in some cases we're not going to replace it at all because we don't want it. As an example, I mean, why would you replace the Australian Taxation Office as an example? Right, okay, you'd get rid of it. You don't want it. Okay, so I think the architecture is good in the new document, and I commend this group of women for the amount of work that they put in over the time frame, right? They really worked their tails off, and I congratulate them for it. Now, the next stage where we're up to now, right now, is for the broad adoption of it, right? The broad adoption, and we need to pull our fingers off out of our butts to get that done, because as what Aunty Glenda has mentioned earlier, there is a pending economic reset, right? That is breathing down our necks. No one knows exactly when, no one knows exactly how, but we do know the current financial system is on the verge of being taken out. It's a slow-moving train wreck. We've already seen banks go belly up a month or two ago, and it's going to get worse. Okay, so our operating environment is that we don't have a lot of time. Okay, so we need to get broad adoption. Now, to get broad adoption, right, we've got to have people go through the two parts, right? And I think part 1 and part 2 are easily now digestible, right? They're not overly worded, right? And we've got to fine tune it and then say, right, that's the version. That's the one we're going to go with. Now, once we've got that, right, there needs to be some sort of signing ceremony. Okay, in my opinion, I'm open, but in my opinion, I think it should be the red thumbprint that was suggested by Aunty Glenda earlier, or something similar, right? Now, once we get it signed off by those people who have got, a high vested interest in a successful outcome, we then need to simply promote it and, educate the Australian people not only what it is, but why we've done it. We've done it because, the whole country's off the rails. It's off the rails. We've got to get it back. So, that's how I would look at it, and I commend it to the audience, Carl.
Absolutely. I've read the document a couple of times now, and I find it very fair. I find it does raise, points like the first one I raised there before. There are a few of those things in the cultural area where I guess people are going to say, oh, well, do we really need that? Or do we want to remove this? These are all discussion points. This isn't a be-all and end-all document. So bear that in mind if you are planning on downloading it. Once again, if you want a copy of this document, go to vofhq.com, go over to the Log of Claims tab, click on it, and it's right there. You can download it. So I've been scrolling through, and we've only just got down to D. So I like quite a lot of what you've got here going on in defence. Stop the government from sending troops off this continent to fight wars for their personal gain. Stop supporting NATO, who I see Albo has come out and supported again today, even after his funeral director, mate Paul Keating, came out and bagged the association with NATO. Bring troops home and all technology supplied, including those cardboard planes that we've sent to Ukraine, I guess. Stop war crimes immediately. That's a very fair and most desirous things. Stop immediately all war and or with Russia, Ukraine, or any other country and territory. These all seem very reasonable and something that we should be doing. What happens if a country doesn't play along? Bear in mind, this is a document for Australians, but I think this document has legs globally.
Yes,
There isn't
I've been asked.
anything too Australian here. Uh,
I've been
tribal
asked
is
already.
tribal. Oh, have
Yeah,
you? Right. Tell
I've
us, Bethany.
been.
Sorry.
I've had people reach out over the last couple of days and ask, one, can this same document be adopted in their country? Others ask if I have a template that they can use and write it for their country. So yes, it's been yes, all over the world that's been requested already, and it was only it was sent out on the 11th at the time 11 a.m. on the 7th of the 7th 2023, which is 777.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very powerful day. A very powerful day. So we were told. I'm not right up with the numerology side of things at all. So 777 day passed for me, with me simply being able to explain to people how we got 777 out of it.
And that's fantastic. That's fantastic, Carl, your contribution. And that's the point. We all have a role to play in terms of what our skill sets are to support everybody. We all are a community, and the community is organically growing in terms of what our skill set is, how we can support, and how we nurture this country so there is a beautiful future for our children that's safe and allows them to prosper, and that their children can prosper as well. So that is the vision, is that actually we have a continent that we can be proud of, and that we can grow and support communities for our children and our children's children.
Glenda, community is something obviously in the tribal culture that is very significant, and one could argue that community culture has been lost somewhat over the last couple of hundred years. Tribal
And
lands.
that's
Now, is this going to change? Is this going to change that situation? With if all the money comes through, the Nasara Jasara money, and this document to protect people's freedoms, not their rights, but their freedoms, is this something that is sellable, I guess, is where I'm getting back to.
Yeah. If you look at C14, it's got welcome to country, and I kind of put that down as stop doing the welcome to countries. What I mean by that, he stopped doing the welcome to country smoking ceremonies. He's under the corporate umbrella because it's not really done within the spiritual realm. We want to bring our true spirituality back, our true culture back in community. We want to be able to live it every day. Obviously, we've all been lied about our spirituality, and we really need to tap back into within ourselves as individuals. What does that really mean? To me, it doesn't mean standing there for these corporate people is just token positions and they're getting paid. We really need to bring it back to country, to home country, and, live it and share it. It could become a part of your business. It could become a part of, your community. Because I grew up in a small town, Yass, and I'll tell you now, there's not many employment opportunities for our people. When I look back over time, not many of our people have worked in our hometown of Yass. We've had to go to Canberra. A lot of us worked for the government. So there's no real business. There's no real, self-determination of having a business, for cultural stuff, arts. And,
if money
music,
wasn't a
dance.
problem,
Yep.
if money wasn't a problem for those families living in those areas, do you think that they would look and start developing those sorts of cultural pursuits, educational pursuits?
Absolutely. And I think it needs to start with the healing. I already actually, went and spoke to people in my community, and I spoke to even my pastor and people I went to church with. And I stopped there, I said, our town needs cleansing. It needs cleaning up of the filth. They're the exact words I said, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know. And this is a part of the healing. I've done 6 healing retreats on Parliament lawns with a friend of mine. It's called WOW, Welcome Our Women. And it's all about raising the vibration and learning how to, self-healing with all the energies.
Yeah.
So our town needs healing because, if you look at C34, it goes, stop stealing our ancestral belongings. We've had our family human remains returned to us from a museum overseas. And it was given back to us in the last 10 years. And there's a little sort of grave with a little plaque in the cemetery that hasn't even got a name of our relative. It's just bones being returned to country.
Yeah,
we've got a secret children's grave, no plaques or headstones. Who owns the children there? It's all this. I'm going to call it out. All this satanic stuff. All these unanswered questions. I've got my own personal journey going on at the moment with, what's going on, and I want answers. And it all has to come back with us coming together as a community, start having these conversations of, what really happened. If you look at the Cane and White report, I can send you a copy of the Cane and White report, how our people lived as fringe dwellers, in tin huts with dirt floors. And we weren't allowed to come in town without, the exemption reports. My family was one of the first families that came into mainstream back in the 70s. And we were able to live in sort of mainstream society. And we went to school. We had to assimilate in our own, country town in the schools. Because before my time, they had Aboriginal schools. My people weren't allowed to go to, the normal schools. And it's this history that needs to be shared. We're not blaming nobody. No one's to blame now. That history's in the past. But we want to be able to sit down as a community and acknowledge this is what happened. Because I love my hometown. We know each other. We love each other. Every time we go home, it's so loving.
Yeah.
But we're all not responsible for what happened with all the awful things.
And I think that's with this document, Carl. I think, I'm so grateful that, I consider Glenda my friend and the other tribal lady that supported writing this document, that we did it together. We didn't look at colour. We just went, what's going wrong that needs to be stopped?
They're real stories.
Go right, or what are we aware of that can be changed? And as women, 3 women, we sat and actually worked out what we believe from our knowledge and our training, what we could do. And then we had another woman that actually then wordsmithed it.
Oh, I think you're dropping out, Bethany.
Bethany.
But it was purely done from the
I think you're dropping out a little bit.
collaborative our community and work together.
You're dropping out.
Follow through in this
not much.
document. Hopefully people feel that.
Yeah. Sorry, Bethany, you dropped out a bit there, and I think people get the main idea. It's about building community. And this is something we've essentially been speaking about in the Voice of Freedom, well, from day one. The only way that we can do this is through unity, through community, as my place has now adopted a great catch line. And of course, there's been one floating around for years, in that it takes a village to raise a child. And tribally speaking, nothing could be truer, really, could it, Glenda?
Are you there still there? Can you hear me, Carl?
Yep, I'm fine, Glenda. I think Bethany's having trouble hearing things.
Okay, yeah. So while she's fixing sort of her volume or whatever, but why I support the log of claims, because I can only hope that this will unite us as people, no matter what race, color you are. It's about bringing us all together with a united vision, with peace, harmony.
There we go.
And a new way of
seems
living.
To be, doesn't it?
no more poverty. You know, this document is a
Can you hear me now?
Is a tool.
Yeah, we can.
A tool to transition
hear
out
me
of
now?
the corporate world.
Yeah, Bethany, we've got you back.
Is that better?
Yes. Well, it was for 2 words. We'll see how you go for a whole sentence. But
So yes, a tool to transition out of the corporate world. You know.
Yes. And that's the key. I mean, there are so many people who, it doesn't matter what color, are trapped in the corporate world. They are full of thoughts, questions, and love for their government paychecks as they see them coming in every fortnight, not necessarily the ones that are working in the public service. I mean, I'm talking about the ones that are working for Centrelink. So I think this document gives a lot of food for thought going forward. I think it gives us a tremendous direction going forward that we can all rally around and discuss like human beings. There's no need for aggro. There's no need for dissension. There's no need for mockery. If there is something in the document you think needs to be added or talked about or taken out, these things are open for discussion. And I saw a comment racing past earlier about how are we ever going to be able to do this, or wouldn't it be nice if we could all vote on this from home? Well, that will be possible. Something like a quantum phone or a quantum voting system is coming our way. Trust me, you've probably been to your last school sausage election day barbecue, or there will be very few in your future, because that sort of technology is available. John and I have been investigating that for some time, John. It's really only the application of, I think the last comment was about $15,000 that it required to go to the developers to link this into the blockchain. Was that right?
Correct. It's still a little bit, costly for volunteer organisations. Okay, it's because we're not applying it commercially, and we're not trying to make money out of it. It's a community initiative, so it's still a little bit cost prohibitive, but it is there. It is within grasp, and soon, we're going to be doing all sorts of voting by way of blockchain.
Yeah. So it could even come down to it, folks, that within your communities, like within each town, you might decide through My Place. Let's use My Place.
Did you hear any
example?
Any of what I said before?
Little bits and pieces.
But you're in and out.
Yeah. So and you obviously weren't hearing us at all, telling you it was very difficult to hear, but not to worry. Places like My Place are ideal for this kind of thing, because you can.
What I was saying is, this document was to put together by my.
Cutting out again.
No, you've gone again, Bethany.
I think there's a bit of a delay there too.
Yeah, there's certainly a lag.
But anyway, keep going, Cole. Yep.
Yeah, don't know what's happened there. I might just drop her out because she comes in and starts talking at weird times. And there is obviously a big lag at her end. So, yeah, I think My Place is the place where you can start this and build from communities out. Now, if you have, it doesn't matter the size of town, this sort of blockchain ability, this blockchain voting ability will be able to be done at that local level all the way through to national level. So if you have enough residents tripping over a bit of cement or a lifted concrete pathway, or there's a bloody great pothole that's emerged in the main street for some reason, then this can be raised on your intra-community app, if you like, and it will be fixed. It will be seen to and be fixed, very, very quickly. Now, this can also work on a if you like, funding scale. We've got enough money to build a new town hall or a new kids skate park, or to send 3 of our councillors on an overseas fact-finding mission. What do you think we should spend it on? A, B, or C? And because it's blockchain voting, it will not be able to be hacked. You won't be able to have multiple phones and vote multiple times or rig the voting in that way. At least that's my understanding of the technology that's coming. So I think that would be huge benefit to us all. I'll see whether or not Bethany has returned.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, you're back?
Yeah. Technology, the phone's got 9% on it, trying to charge it, different rooms, the internet works, doesn't work. We're all used to it now, right? It's just how it is.
Absolutely. Thank you, J1.
So one thing I'd like to add is we're currently in the process of putting a website together too. So in the aims of saying to people that to research things themselves, we will have a website with all this information on here. Anything that we've said stop, there's evidence that nothing put in this document that we don't already have evidence on. So all this will be uploaded to this. Remember, everyone is doing this from a humanitarian heart space, so it's in the timeline that we have availability to upload information and get the right people to help design websites, etc. So we are in the process of speaking to somebody even tomorrow to start on the website. At the bottom of the document, there is already an email address, so they can either reach out through you, Carl, or there is at the bottom of the one, we've created a domain called wethepeopleofaustralia.life. So that will be our website that we will start putting information up, but there isn't a website yet. It's just a holding domain, so we could get an email onto this document so people knew how to reach out. As you said, everything's open for the discussion. If you read the first page, it says everything in it is up to the people. So whatever the people want to change, whatever wording we want to use, remember, this is not anyone else's law anymore. This is the law that we create for this country. So if anyone gets offended by a specific wording of don't use this word or don't use that word because it means that, it no longer means that. This is our document from the people. It's all about our intent.
Yeah. All about our intent. I think that's a great way to leave it. Ladies, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I can't thank you enough for the huge amount of work that you and the rest of your team have put into this document. I commend it to you folks. Please go to VoFHQ.com, the Voice of Freedom website, and flick across to the Log of Claims tab, and you'll find it there. You can download it. You can print it out. If you've got a color printer, you'll get the full benefits of all that work. And can I just tell you, Bethany, I was so happy to hear you say, I put it in color because some people read better that way.
Yes.
I am one of those people, and I used to make these colored documents up. Yeah, right. So I used to make these colored documents up and send them to an accountant I once had the misfortune of knowing, and he used to crack the shits. He didn't know why it had all these colors and things on it. It's like, because it's a lot easier to
Yeah, and you say stop for red and start. It's like traffic lights. Stop the red, start the green. And if you're interested in a department, look at that department first. It's not no one has to cover everything. It's a good idea if you have a bit of an idea, but we have a lot going on. Everyone has busy lives. Focus on the area that interests you the most and get involved in discussions on it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming in tonight. Aunty Glenda, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to another cuddle from you real soon.
Yes,
and
real soon, yes.
And a cup of coffee somewhere along Cronulla Beach, maybe.
Sounds good to me. We can discuss what we discussed the other night, trip to Brisbane.
Absolutely. Be very keen. Be very keen to have you up our way.
Carla, I'd like to just, because that's probably the part that you didn't get. I'm very privileged to know Glenda and call her my friend, and I'm very grateful that that she's been part of this with me. As soon as I mentioned to her, she said, right, what time can I come over and when can we start looking at it? Another tribal lady from the other side of the country, same thing. How can I help? When do you need me? What can I do? And then when I reached out to another lady to ask if she'd wordsmith it, she said, when can I look at it? What can I do? How can I help? And when there was some that she didn't know, she highlighted them and said, now, especially in the culture space, she said, I don't know about this, so I've learned a lot. But with these ones, how can I assist wording it so people can we can get the message across so people can learn. So I feel so privileged for them, and I'm so grateful for John for actually doing the first draft to help the people be educated on what's going on. Thank you.
But certainly given it, it's certainly given it the kickstart it needed. I think it's lifted it. It's given it that kickstart, and not just through this platform, but a variety of others have shared it. It's been interesting to note the ones that haven't shared it. But it is certainly getting around, and we've had a lot of great reaction to it. Once again, ladies, thank you very much for your input, and we will talk further on this again in the not too distant future, I'm sure.
Thank you, Tamara. You're a wonderful person to be
so
around
much.
with and
Thank
work with.
you.
All right.
Thank you,
Good on
Carl.
you, guys.
Thank you,
See
John.
you soon. And the old
Good night,
pirate
everybody.
himself.
Thank you.
Can't let you go just yet.
Thank you, Carl.
Got to give you a bit of a plug. You are appearing in Coffs Harbour. Your fans will be able to throw flowers, knickers, or bottles of red wine or scotch, whatever you're taking at the time, at the stage at the big mega rally happening this weekend in Coffs Harbour.
Yes, Saturday around about 5:30 to 6:30, that sort of time slot. So it'll be in dusk or dark. I'm programmed to speak publicly for around about 20 minutes. I will be covering a bit of ground. I mean, 20 minutes is a fair bit of time to speak publicly. I'll be covering a fair bit of ground in that 20 minutes. And who knows, I might, I might say, yeah. I mean, I can't help that, Carl. I mean, I'm sort of, once the die's cast when you're younger, you turn out, but if you're, that's, so I can't help that. But like, I might aim a few swear words at the right people, who knows?
That's the way to do it, mate. That's the way to do it. Absolutely. All right. Well, I look forward to that. I'll be coming down with you. And pardon me, I've got to let the organisers know yet, but we'll tell the public now. I think they've put it up somewhere on a list of speakers. I thought I'd made it pretty clear. I don't get up and speak too much at public events, but they've put me down to speak on behalf of my place on Sunday afternoon, late Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, I won't be able to hang around with that. I've got an elderly old man who I need to get back to his boat. So
with one leg.
With one leg, yeah. So won't be able to hang around for that one on Sunday, unfortunately. But we will be down on Saturday, and we might have some sort of a breakfast on Sunday morning somewhere if a few people want to catch up. We can probably arrange that too. So if there are people in Coffs that want to catch up, email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I can let you know where and when we're likely to be. Thank you, John. Really appreciate your time and efforts again this evening, and everything that you put into the log of claims, mate. It's proving to be one of the most serious documents. My pleasure. I think it's one of the most serious documents of our time, and really, who knows where it's going to lead to. I think it's quite exciting.
Big potential. It's got big potential, Carl, yes.
All right, mate. Love your work. Talk to you during the week, no doubt.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Cheers, mate. John Wilson, the man himself. All right, folks, our Limerick winners will be announced tomorrow. Catherine Smith happens to be in southeast Queensland, and Paul from Ainsley Bullion has come back from holidays. He and the kids, they've had a joyous time. I believe there was a bit of my placing noosering going on up there at the time with Paul and his crew on holidays. So awesome to see that he's part of that too. Please join us tomorrow night. If you entered in the Limerick competition, only available to our members, then you are in the draw to win a 10-ounce bar of silver from Ainsley Bullion and possibly one of 3 1-ounce coins from Freedom Financial Solutions. Thanks to Cass Smith and her team there, who are helping people out left, right, and centre. I've got a few more emails today, so if you are interested in setting up a self-managed super fund, let me know, because I can guarantee you she's getting the email as soon as I am. You can just email me again, carl@vofhq.com, if you want to get that one through. So we are actually going to go into Ainsley's tomorrow. We're going to record these winner announcements. Paul has had his judging hat on today. Cass has got her judging hat on today, and I expect by tomorrow night we will have winners announced, or ready to be announced at least, and hopefully that's you. Thank you very much to everybody who entered, and we might see there might be a few more people coming on for a few more competitions in the future. Try and work our way up to a bit of gold. Who knows? Anything's possible. Thank you very much to everybody's input tonight and to the stickers. J1, thank you very much for your contribution. I really appreciate it. And that's for the captain. Well, I can share that with him too. That'll be, in fact, a good friend of the show who distills his own beverages. Was talking to me the other day. He's promised me a bottle of something called honey smoked bourbon or something along those lines before this week. And he said, "Oh, you'll be able to take it and share it with John." Well, I roared laughing because you got to be quick around him, I tell you. But anyway, if that bottle turns up, we may well get to promoting that for him as well, because he's not a bad little distiller, this bloke, got to tell you. Hoping your school holidays went well, hoping they are going well if you are still on school holidays, as I know many people are. And wherever you are, just make sure that you steer clear of the dickheads on the road, and please do not try and emulate one. See you soon, folks.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!